Hey homeschool friends, welcome to another video. Welcome to an update video. So this is my February update video. How did homeschooling go this past month? I have a lot to share. I have some life stuff to update you on, as well as just a lot of homeschool things. I've had a number of epiphanies or ideas about certain curriculum I am using, namely Saxon and Spelling UC, that I want to share with you. I think they're really good ideas. And so anyway, I'm going to get into all of that in today's video. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, or welcome back if you've been coming for a while. So in my update videos, I tend to talk about what's going on in my life, as well as our family subjects, and then my individual kids, which in this case, it's third grade, second grade, and twin preschoolers. So let's just hop in because I feel like these videos always tend to be a bit chatty, but I really love these videos because I love the interaction on them with you all. So as for life update, first off, thank you all so much for just your kind words and your support and reaching out to me and just encouraging me in this season of my health and struggling with my health, which I'll link above the video where I just talk more about that. I'm not going to get into it again. Things are going well. I'm seeing a number of different specialists. I'm in the process of trying to figure out different therapies or things that work for my body, whether they be drugs or food. Like I'm starting to eat more of a paleo sort of lifestyle. I'm still very much in the beginning phases of just trying to figure out how to live well, how to thrive with this autoimmune disorder. And so it's all going well. Thank you again for all your prayers. So yeah, I'd say that's really the biggest thing that's been going on in life that I need to update you guys on. So jumping into homeschool then, I'm still really in an excellent season for homeschool. I feel like we have really hit a stride. We're doing really well, which again, I'm just really thankful that that's the case, that we're doing well, but I am continuously striving to troubleshoot and find the best way to do things. So I have some things to share on that note. But I'm also in the season of planning for next year, which has been all the videos that have been on my channels. But it is just, oh, it's such a fun time of year. I love making decisions. I love envisioning for the future. I love this time of year because there's also so many sales, which I love having homeschooled for a number of years because now I know when all the sales happen. Like with Sonlight, all the sales happen in March and April. So March is the big sale for Sonlight is the beginning of March. If you're not interested in the new version of the curriculum coming out in their new catalog, or you wait till April and all the new stuff comes out. So I'm still working through exactly what my plan is for that. So anyway, I always link Sonlight down below because I talk about them all the time, but they are running their sales if you're interested, as well as Christian Book. I just made a huge order from Christian Book because they had free shipping on a lot of the different curriculum that I use. So anyway, this time of year is fantastic. You all know that. I feel like I am not alone in feeling kind of the planning bug and just wanting to think about all the next year's curriculum. But at the same time, I am really enjoying this year's curriculum more than other years. I feel like in previous years of homeschooling, by about this time, I was just kind of tired of what we were using, but I'm not. My kids are loving it. They are super engaged. We are having some great conversations, and I'm just seeing strides in their skills, as well as just all the fun things we get to talk about, whether it's science or history. So it's going well, obviously. Let me actually give you some specifics. Let's hop into family subjects. And family subjects for us is really Sonlight. Sonlight has really just kind of taken over this chunk of our homeschool, and we all love it. My kids love it. I love it. It's great. So we use History, Bible, Literature B, as well as Science B for our family subjects. So history, we'll just go in order. History is going really well. We are to the point in ancient history. So we're doing the first part of ancient history this year. And we've gone through a lot of the Greeks and Troy and Alexander the Great. And now we're moving into Rome. And my son has just really loved it. I can't remember where we were reading about Hannibal and how they were trying to attack Italy and all these things. And they had elephants. They were going over the Alps. Anyway, I was reading this out loud to my kids, and my son was like, I never knew history could be so exciting. And then he grabbed his little brothers. He's like, you guys are going to be elephants. And we're going to pretend the couch is the Alps, and we're going to reenact this whole thing. And they just did. As I was reading it, they just thought it was super funny. And I love those moments, right? You just can't manufacture that. You can't push your kids into those creative zones. But I feel like the history this year has really done that. There's been some times when it hasn't, like they haven't been as interested in certain topics, but I don't know. It's been really fun. So we've been loving the history. Bible, again, Bible is going really well. So we are using a slightly older version for the HBLB. And so it still had this book, so Leading Little Ones to God, as the main book you read, as well as you're reading from the Bible every day and memorizing scripture every day. So it's really good. You guys, the conversations we have, the conversations I can have with my bigger kids as well as my younger kids, just about some core foundations of our faith, have just been outstanding. I wouldn't trade this book for anything. And I'm really glad I did not judge it by the cover, because when I started, I was like, I don't know, you guys, this seems so old-fashioned. It's so good. It's so good. And granted, I don't use all of it. I don't do the prayer. I should maybe, but we just read it and we just chat through it. And even in the reading, it has like conversations. It's like conversational questions, which the kids just kind of are eating their snack and kind of engaging them with the questions. And it's very low key, very discussional. And we love the Bible. We're still memorizing really well. Again, that's going super well, the note card idea. So history, Bible, literature. So literature's always good. And we've actually been cranking through some Sonlight books. And I think I was talking about this in my January update. We were in the middle of it, or maybe we just finished it. I can't quite remember. But my kids just really enjoy the antics these children get into. There's just a group of kids who all live in this kind of this row of houses they call Noisy Village in Sweden. And it's a little bit more old-fashioned, but it's so fantastic. And they really, really enjoyed it. So I loved that one. And then this one I really enjoyed too. So this brought us to like an ancient Chinese sort of village, and this little boy, or main character of Little Pear. And he is so funny. He's 5 years old and he gets into all these troubles. He is mischievous. I mean, he's not a bad kid, but he's mischievous. And you're hearing the story from his point of view. Like he wanders off and then wants to see the city. So he starts walking towards the city and somebody picks him up and he goes to the city, and like his parents and family think he just like ran away, you know, but you're in the head of this little 5-year-old who just feels very innocent. And it's good because then we get to have conversations about like, what would you do if you're separated from us, and all of these, but mostly we just get to enjoy the story of Little Pear. And so we really like that one. And we're currently reading halfway through The Year of the Baby, which this one is really good too. It's very slice of life. And so it's about this family that adopted a baby from China, a little baby girl. And it is told from the older sister's point of view, how she is affected by this. But it also describes a lot of the joys and challenges of adoption, which has led to some really good conversations with my kids about just like how God calls us to have a heart for kids who don't have families. And then my kids are like, are we going to adopt? And I was like, oh boy, you know, if God puts that on our hearts, we'll make it happen, right? Like we have no intention of that. I feel pretty maxed out with the 4 kids I have, but you know what, if that is what we feel like God is leading us to, we definitely will. And it's neat to have this picture of what that would look like for them. They just don't have a good way to wrap their heads around it. But now we're using literature to kind of help them like walk in somebody else's shoes, like a little girl who now has a baby sister who has some different struggles and things like that. It's just so sweet. And there's more books in this series. And so my daughter is very interested in picking up more of those. So those are the books from Sonlight. Huge hits. I really don't think we've had an issue with a book yet this year, or ever for that matter. I feel like as we go up in some levels, there might be some harder ones or maybe more boring ones, but really they are just nailing it for these younger levels. I'm really enjoying everything that they have put out. So we also do some reading at night, which I always talk about, and we're currently reading a Hardy Boys mystery. We're like 3/4 of the way. These are really fun. We've read them in the past. I feel like I read the last one to them maybe a year ago. They have much better retention and understanding at these ages. So 9 and 7. She's like 7.5 than they did a year ago. So these are great. And it's to the point where we've read enough of them. I think we've read 3 now, that my son is like, I can't wait to pick the rest up, because we bought him like a set from Costco or something like that. So he's like, Mom, we don't need to read any more out loud. And I was like, no problem. Feel free to read them yourselves, right? You know, anything that can push them into their own reading, just excited. So we have been loving our literature. So that brings us to science. Uh, I mean, y'all know if you've been following my channel, I love science. I have a PhD in science. If you haven't been following my channel, that's why I love it so much. It's just near and dear to my heart, and I'm so happy with the Sonlight science on so many levels. My kids really enjoy learning more, and especially the books. Like, we're currently working through the Usborne book of animals, which we've covered animals before, and they watch a lot of like wild kratts and all that. So animals is something they know a lot about, but I feel like it's able to engage them still. And we have like activity sheets, which I brought back, the activity sheets, and my kids have been loving them. So currently there's these ones where you had to cut them out and then paste them onto this chart of like, this is, I think, Africa. So it's the different places like the Congo jungle or the Madagascar or the Delta. And they have to listen to me as I'm talking about the different pages in the Africa section. And then they have to figure out which animals go where. And what's fun is I do include my twins in the time frame where we are reading all of our Sonlight, like history, Bible, literature, science. And they love this because they get to be in charge of the glue stick. And so they're in charge of like putting it where it goes, and they're listening really close to being like, which one goes here? And it's just been really fun to involve them in that as well. And so it's just a hit, and the experiments are still really good. We've hit every one of them since Christmas. So it's still a success. Science Mondays, whatever I decided to call them. We're still doing it. It's working really well. I'm able to squish the other subjects into those 3 other days because we have the enrichment day. So it's working well for right now. I'm loving it. So those are our family subjects. So let me move to our individual subjects, because I forgot to mention that I feel like our individual subjects are going really well because I made this switch to scale back on YouTube. And so I'm making fewer videos. I'm committing to making at least 1 video a week on this channel, sometimes 2. And then 1 video a month on my book channel, just because I don't know when I will have more capacity to pick that back up. And I really enjoy that community. And so I don't want to just table it quite yet. But lessening the amount of videos I make has opened up my time, and it's made me realize a few things, key things, mainly that I was not spending enough time on some of my kids' individual subjects. And I don't mean in the sense of teaching. I mean in the sense of checking their work. That's what I mean. Like in the past, I just kind of be so busy or trying to get everything done in the day that I just be like, okay, do your math. I'm going to switch over to this. And I would never like re-engage with their math. And so I would never check their sheets. And I feel like I'm not sure why I did that. I feel like it is very common sense to check your kids' worksheets and check their work. And I'm not sure why I wasn't doing that very well. I feel like I would do it with them, or I'd kind of catch their mistakes, but now I'm checking it. So anyway, that is what's changed a bit this month that I'm really satisfied with, you guys. I'm really happy about. So let me just hop into my 3rd grader. So we are using Saxon Math 3, and it's still going very well. So this is an area where I did figure something out that's working really well. So if you are a Saxon mom, you would know about these math fact sheets. Even if you're not, I mean, math facts are common in a lot of programs, and my kids really need them. I feel like we ended up on Saxon because they were struggling to master their math facts. But the problem I landed into was that Saxon, the way they set up their program, or at least with the fact sheets, is you time the kids. And it'll always say like time them for a minute, time them for 45 seconds, and have them do it as fast as they can, then correct it and have them finish the sheet, which is just fine. And I get the point, but my kids do not do well with that. And I know that's the case for a lot of children. They just start to feel that anxiety. And I get it, because you're like waiting for this beep, right? You're waiting for the timer to go off, and it feels like it's building an anxiety. And I feel like both of them don't respond well to that. And so in the past, I've been like, okay, well, let's just work on our facts. There's no need for timers, which is good to some extent. My problem has been then they're not working on getting their facts quickly. Like, they're not up in their brain. And my son is really good at like coming up with little tricks for solving it, which I love, but sometimes it does slow him down. And so I feel like it's an equal balance of learning those tricks, because that's good ways for solving math, but also memorizing so they can get that knowledge quickly. So what I've started doing is I've started setting a stopwatch. on my phone. Instead of setting a timer, I just start the stopwatch and they are competing with themselves. So I have this number on the board for each of them, and it's basically a minute and a number. So I'll time them and say they'll do this math sheet, and I'm telling them to do it as quick as they can. And then we check it and make sure they do it right. And once they're finished, I'll stop the stopwatch and say it's like 2 minutes and 5 seconds. I'll write that on the board. And then the next day, they're competing against themselves. Can you do it faster than 2 minutes and 5 seconds? All right, practice with your flashcards. All right, let's do the fact sheet. And they love it. And I have to make sure they are not competing with each other, because that's not good. That's not good at all. But they can compete with their own time and they really enjoy it. It is more of a competition. They're not just waiting for a beeper and feeling like massive anxiety. So we've kind of conquered our fact sheets, and their math facts are going better, you guys. They're going better. So I'm so happy I kind of had that brainwave to come up with that idea. So that's just a fun tip for this update video if you do use Saxon, but I've been loving that. And the other thing I think I'm going to be doing is I'm a little bit wary of the fact that my son will be moving up into Saxon 5.4 next year. I'm thinking of using Nicole the Math Lady, but I'm going to try out a number of different programs and let you know. But I'm going to use probably a video lesson of some sort, but I don't know if his math facts are solid. So Nicole the Math Lady does have like this thing called Drill Team, so I'm thinking about that. But I also just picked up some Abeka worksheets. And so Abeka Arithmetic, I have no intention of using. I'm not buying any teacher's guides. I just think their program is similar to Saxon in the fact that it spirals. It's different in the fact that it's way ahead of Saxon. So they're covering similar things in Saxon 3 and Abeka Arithmetic 2. So I just picked up Arithmetic 2, and we're just going to go through some of those sheets. We're going to do some of their speed drills, and I'm just going to give it to them as a little bit of extra practice for them to be able to see it in a little different way and just have a little more work with math, because I feel like you could definitely overdo math, but I feel like it's also a very important skill and you don't want to be too casual about it either. And so I did order those, and I'll still have to figure out how I'm planning on using them. And then it'll probably help me carry math a bit into the summer, as well as some fact practice. Because last summer we tried, oh, we're just going to use our flashcards and play games, and that didn't work. And I don't necessarily need to do something big over the summer, but I do want to keep some individual reading and math. So anyway, that's kind of where math is. And that's pretty similar with my daughter, who is 7.5 doing Saxon 2. I'm doing very similar things with her because I was also finding that she was kind of forgetting a lot of things. And I'm also, for both of them, checking their worksheets, because the way Saxon is set up, they have a side A and side B. Usually I have them do side A, and now I'm checking it. I'm like literally using a purple pen, but I'm correcting it. And if they get enough of it wrong, I just have them do that same problem on side B, because they're very similar. So we'll go over what they did wrong. I'll have them do it again. And I think that will be better for retention. So it's going well. They're receiving it well. At first, they didn't receive it too well. They were like, why are you correcting all our stuff? And I'm like, because I should have been this whole time. I'm not quite sure why I dropped that ball. So I'm happy I'm picking it back up, and I have a little bit more like brain space to do that. So that's math for kind of both my kids. So language arts for my 3rd grader. All right, Abeka, he's doing Abeka Language Arts 2. We're just doing the language portion of that. So it's the review of phonics and the language. It does not take long. It's a very fast, like, review a special sounds chart, and then we're going to either review a couple concepts and there's a new language concept and we move on. And then I have him do the worksheets. But again, for Rebecca, I think they kind of overkill their language worksheets, and I just usually end up crossing off about a quarter of the problems, and it's not necessary. He gets it well enough. So that's going well. All right. So the other major area I have come up with what I feel like is a good idea, and maybe everybody does this, but is spelling. So I have started him up with, actually both of them, with spelling UC, and it's going well. Now I have to use it a certain way for it to go well, because my son is just not naturally gifted at spelling. He gets pretty discouraged. I do love that spelling UC actually encourages him, and it has lifted his confidence quite a bit. One, I feel like they end up counting the number of words the child gets right. So when we go through the whole program, so basically Spelling You See is set up in kind of 5 days. You have a little passage. In the case of where I started my kids, I started them in level B. My third grader is going to finish up, and my daughter's still at the very beginning of level B. But they're going through these passages, these little nursery rhymes, and they highlight certain words. So they're really focusing on chunking words, which is important and actually works because Becca has like special sounds to teach phonics. So it's already kind of a word chunking way of learning to do phonics. So this kind of flips it for spelling. And the way they have it set up is you're practicing writing that passage for 3 days, I think. And then there's a 4th day that is like, write your own thing. We kind of always skip that. And then a 5th day where it's assigned for them to do dictation, where I read out the passage that they've been practicing and they write it. So what I found is I can't just do that. What I have to do for him is we have to pull out some of those words and have him write them a number of times. He actually really likes that. We'll pick the words he needs to write, and we'll just have a piece of paper and he'll write out those words over and over for like 7 times, whatever we decide for the day. And then I do the dictation. Okay, and that's been good, but I've decided to kind of add a little extra to this. So what we have done is I've squished it together a little bit. So on the 3rd day, I do the dictation. So we practice for 2 days, and then on the 3rd day, we practice some words and do the dictation and see how he does. If he doesn't do so well, we do the dictation again. So 2 days. If he like nails it and does awesome, what I do with that 4th day is I review previous passages, right? Because this is the thing, is I want him to have retention of some of these words. I mean, some of them I don't care about, like Mother Hubbard. I don't care if he knows how to spell Hubbard, but some of those other words that he will notoriously get wrong, I want him to hear it again. So he'll have another chance at dictating that whole nursery rhyme, even though that's not this week, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to kind of focus on this week's dictation, but also pull in old ones and kind of almost spiral Spelling You See a bit. And it has worked really well because he loves it. So if we go back to a passage and he does it again, he usually gets more of the words right. And then he's even more proud of himself, which is very helpful for a kid who really doesn't do well at spelling. So he's liking that aspect of language arts quite a bit. And so that's Becca, Spelling You See, and then Sonlight Language Arts is our other big one, which I've made a whole review video about, at least Language Arts 1 and 2, and he's doing Language Arts 3, which I did a flip through and I am really impressed with. So what I was excited about getting to Language Arts 3 was the diamond notes, which is Sonlight's way of teaching writing. Okay, so now we have, in pretty much January and February, gone through the major teaching for the diamond notes, where we picked a main idea, picked 3 supporting ideas and a concluding sentence, and then we switched that, and then we transferred it to another document, made a paragraph out of it, added detail, all these things, right? We worked on that. And now, what I like is now we're going back to some of the old assignments. Like for instance, this is the first week that wasn't based on diamond notes. It was just a descriptive paragraph about your favorite character in a recent book that he has read. So he picked Little Pear, which I just talked about, and he used one of those diamonds to set up his paragraph. He picked it about Little Pear. What are 3 things about Little Pear that he liked? How could he conclude it? How could he add extra details? And he was just like, I just wrote a paragraph. And I was so proud of him, and he was so proud of himself because it gave him the structure he needed, but yet he was still able to be creative and have fun with it. And the difference between this year and the previous creative expression years, like level 1 and level 2, is you don't quite have the backbone for stuff like that yet, but the kids are still so young in those levels. And so now he can see how he's grown from where before I was like, let's write an imagination story, and he'd just kind of be all over the place. And that'd be totally fine because I'm just typing it for him. But now he can see how he's doing this a bit more himself, and he likes that. Okay, and so he is really liking the creative expression, but he's also really loving the readers. And like I said in a previous video, we're actually following the schedule for these readers, and it's been great. He's been just feeling really confident. So we've read Keep the Lights Burning, Abby. It was a very sweet story about a family in a lighthouse. We read Prairie School, and this is about a boy who didn't really want to learn to read, but then he saw the values of learning to read. And now we're reading The Pony Express, or Riding the Pony Express. And this is a Clyde Robert Beulah book, and it's so good, you guys. We're about halfway, and just really enjoying some of the nuance of the story because you really get into it more. That there's definitely more words on a page, there's more words in a chapter, and there's bigger feelings, like the characters having some bigger feelings about what's going on. And it's really fun to be able to be like, what do you think you would do in this situation? Or do you think you would have responded the same way? Do you think you would have stood up for that boy? It's been a better book for like discussion and things like that than some of the other ones, but they've all been excellent. And so we're just progressing through our level 3 readers really well. So that is Sonlight Language Arts. And then we also have handwriting and wordly wise and typing. All of that's going good. I never really have anything to say about that other than we probably should boost up the typing and do it a little bit more. But I struggle because I don't have a good location. Do you guys have, this is a question for you all. Do you have a set location in your home somewhere that has like a family computer? Because I have my laptop and that's always where I end up having the kids kind of work on whatever they have to work on. But it'd be nice if they had like a station, especially if I'm going to pick up like Nicole, the math lady. So do you guys have like a computer station in a homeschool room or in your house? Let me know down below because I'm curious about that. Anyway, so that's my son, my 3rd grader. As for my 2nd grader, it's a little bit of a repeat. So Saxon, I've pretty much already talked about. I'm doing the same thing. I've changed those same things with my daughter that I did with my son. She's just doing Saxon level 2. And then to move on to her language arts, her primary thing is reading. And she's doing so good, you guys. She is loving it. Like she will just pick up anything and try and read it. She's like, picks up cookbooks and tries to sound out words. And she picks up some of the picture books for the twins and she tries to read to them. And she just is right there. We haven't quite finished all the special sounds in the Abeka grade 1 program yet for her. So once she gets there, I think she'll really take off because she just has the drive to do it. So it's going well. We're just kind of doing the next thing, doing the next lesson, and just progressing really well for her reading. Like I said, she's also using spelling UC. She's doing really great. She's a little bit competitive with herself, so she likes to get as many words right as she can and keep track of that on the bottom of the sheet again. So that goes really well for her. And then we're doing Sonlight Language Arts and mostly for the creative expression. And she's in language arts too. And this is an example of, this is before they get to the diamond notes. And so what I do with these years, which took me a bit of time to really come to this spot, but how I'm going about things with her is very team-based. We sit down at the computer and I discuss things with her. We talk about some stuff, like I brought one. Yeah, like this was this week's creative expression. And it was a little story starter, which we love. So there's this picture that starts her story out. And in this case, it's an imagination story. And we get to go through the brainstorming part together. And then the next time we meet, we go through writing it up together. And I typically type it. And this is where we just spend a lot of time discussing it. I'll be like, does it sound better to say this or this? Like I tend to try to just write what she says, but then I'll kind of interject as like, oh, so what do you mean by da da da? And I was like, did you want to add a little bit more there? And so we can kind of talk it through and then we'll read it back through and we'll edit a bit and then we'll just print it. And we'll put it in her little notebook and she loves looking back through her little stories. So at this point, I am much more hands-on. And this is where I first struggled when I first started using the Sonlight Language Arts, is I had this expectation that like they should be able to know how to format all this stuff, or like, all right, give me a descriptive paragraph. And then I'd wait and they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And now we don't let that happen. I discuss a lot more with them. So it works better. So that's my daughter. Otherwise, I guess she does handwriting and that's going fine. So that's my daughter. And then my twins, actually they're doing really well. They are progressing really well. But first off, I'll grab their books that are their favorite from the Sonlight program. We're using the Sonlight Preschool program, the 4-5 program. And so this, hands down, is their favorite book. So it's the Lion Storyteller Bedtime Book. It's really funny. There's some really funny stories in here that have resulted in family jokes that we have to explain now to my husband. But they love that book as well as these two. There's a couple other books that they're fine with, but these are the ones they look forward to the most. So this is Things People Do. They love it. And Berenstain Bears Book of Science and Nature. Both so good. So I just love reading their books to them. The big kids often wander over and listen in as well, which is just really fun and special. But otherwise, we're doing Abeka K4 with them, and that's going really well. Actually, they've gotten a little bit better at blending, and they're really proud of themselves. And those blend ladders just help with that. And so I'll make a dedicated review video of K4 once we kind of finish it, because we're going to move on to K5 next year. But it's been really good. Like, for instance, the math part of it has been great. Like, we have all these tables where they'll just count, and they just love it. They love going through all the little families and talking about, well, this is the dad of the family, or this is the dad of the teen family, and they just really enjoy it. They love counting. They want to count the whole thing, but we're still I'm trying to keep them at like 60 or whatever, but we're going to get to the whole thing by the end of the year for sure. And it's just really fun. They love it. So that's my twins. I realize I hardly ever update too much on them, but they're just happy, go lucky kids. They are progressing, and I'm loving reading stories to them. It's my favorite. So you guys, that is my update for February. I had such a good month. I had such good ideas. I feel like they're good ideas, at least for my kids. I hope they're useful for you as well. But let me know down below how your month went. Are you doing okay? Because I know some people really hit the like homeschool blues come February. And I'm really thankful that's not me this year. I couldn't do that, plus health problems. So God is just being gracious to me in that. And our homeschool is going really well. And my kids are growing, and I'm growing as a homeschool mom. So I couldn't ask for anything else. So again, let me know how you're doing down below. And otherwise, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to, and I will see you guys in the next homeschool video. All right, take care. Bye.